click the link down below on Patreon, or I'll put the link up here in the corner to Patreon, so you can go there and become a patron supporter.
Get mantra and meditation MP3s at JasonGallant.ca.
Today I want to talk to you a little bit about a funny thing that happens to all of us on this spiritual journey. It's called perfectly ignorant. It's something that happens to everyone. So this is not a judgment video, okay? So it's just the way the path works. And what happens as you go along your path is that you become aware of many things. That Shiva aspect, Om Namah Shivaya, right? The expanding of that awareness. And what do you become aware of? A lot of times you become aware of the subtle forces which have been enslaving you. The subtle forces that have been prodding you in one direction or another. And then you apply the acceptance and the dissolution of any judgment around these forces, and that gobbles them up, and then there's a greater harmony that happens. You become like, what's that cartoon character name that he's built like a ball, and then all of a sudden he absorbs something and then goes boop, then it expands. It's kind of like your spiritual process is a lot like that. Then you expand, right? And then you have a greater self in the ego form. It's like a lake and a puddle. A lake is not as susceptible to the windstorms that come, but a mud puddle might get totally blown away, right? Just all of a sudden splattered all over the place. But as you expand, you become stronger and better able to harmonize the forces of the universe as they move through you. But as your awareness expands and then you settle into a new level of embodiment of what you have attained, it is normal to become spiritually ignorant to the next level of the expansion of awareness. So there are other forces that are still unconscious to you that are driving you, and you could call them sufferings, subtle sufferings. And as you sit, and this is why meditation is employed so much so, is that when you meditate, your awareness naturally expands because you become aware of all the subtleties within you, the subtleties within subtleties. And of course, this is limited by your level of awareness at the time. But you will become aware of your subtleties that are driving you. And as you become aware of this, then again, the acceptance process happens and the dissolution and you become one with these forces, and then there's a greater harmony that happens. But the mistake that does happen, if we're going to use that word, is that people will be at a certain level and then they will assume that their awareness knows everything, that there is no more subtleties left for them, even though there are some clear indications that some of the forces that are working through them are not working for them anymore. Sometimes we see this with people with strong addictive patterns that are destroying their health. You know, this is a very obvious one, or a very easy one to use as an example. Right? Some people say, well, I feel great, I feel great, I feel great. Meanwhile, they're doing all this stuff that's destroying them, but they say they feel great. Well, that is a perfect state of ignorance. They're actually ignoring what is happening. They're basically cutting off their awareness and then saying they're at peace. So it's an illusory peace. It's an illusion of peace, but it's not peace. They're really in pieces. That's what's happening. So all over the world, there are teachers, like spiritual teachers and students, arguing. And because the student a lot of times will say, no, I already know that. Yeah, been there, done it. Like, I know everything, I'm at peace. Meanwhile, the teacher, if they're a real teacher, will be aware, very aware of the subtle forces that are destroying the student and trying to bring attention to that in the gentlest way they can, so that the student can then melt into those forces as well, and then no longer be prodded into destructive behaviors. You're really having a lovemaking with these subtle sufferings. That's what really happens, is that you are making love to the suffering within you, but first you must become aware of it. You can't just be cutting it off your head like walking around like you're a bobblehead, and then cutting off your awareness from all those things that are going on. And that's usually the type of peace that people in the metaphysical circles know. They've basically become numb. They've really shut off their awareness on certain areas that they don't want to see anymore. They haven't accepted. There's no acceptance. There's no bridging of the light and the dark. There is just excommunication. And they say, oh, I'm so peaceful. But they're running around in circles constantly, but they're saying, I'm so peaceful. Sometimes you'll see this, sometimes, not always, but sometimes you'll see this with people who are dominated by constant action. They always have to be moving, and they've come up with an agenda or a reason why this is important and why it's supposed to be so. But really what they're doing is they are acting out these forces that are still stuck in their unconscious. Always needing to move, needing. This is based on suffering. This is not based on freedom. If you need to do something, or if you have to do something no matter what, one could argue that that's not free will. One could argue that something is driving you, but it's not you. So the movement of truth is the movement of freedom. It isn't the movement of obligation. Now, there is the obligation of the physicality, of course, as far as survival. But some people will use that story of survival to overcompensate. I need $17 billion in the bank in order to make sure survival happens. I need to work 17 jobs and have 1 million houses in order to make sure survival happens. You know, like there is this story that is not necessarily coming from a place of freedom. Now, I'm not saying people that are affluent or rich are in illusion or by any means. I'm not saying that either. So what I'm saying is always be open to the fact that there may be some subtleties that are in alignment with suffering that are driving you. So just like you clean your house every day, clean yourself every day. Through opening yourself and allowing, being receptive to what is shown to you. The subtleties within subtleties. And through this constant purification, enlightenment is attained. It's an exercise in humility with reality. Only through humility can reality show itself to you. And it's a constant process. So I'm not saying that I'm finished, and I'm not saying that anyone is finished. Maybe some people are, but I'm not saying it's not about the being finished, you see? Are you really ever finished taking showers? I mean, it's just a process. So I hope this helps you on your spiritual journey. Take care for now.